I want to talk very briefly about the concept of leverage. When we talk about leverage, what we're talking about typically is putting in place a structure where we benefit more from price movements when they're in our favor, and arguably take a greater loss when they go against us. And often this involves borrowing money. A lever is a mechanical instrument that allows us to magnify a force that's applied. So with a lever, we can apply a certain force and we can magnify that force to have a greater impact. And that's what financial leverage is all about again, as well. So for example, let's say we have $10 and we borrow $90 to buy something that's $100. So we could say that we bought something that costs $100, and of that $100 we paid for using $10 of our own money, or in other words $10 of equity, and $90 of debt. So we have leverage. We've employed debt to create leverage. And why is there this leverage, and how does it manifest itself? Well, let's assume, for example, that this item of 100 moved in price and now was worth 110. Well, assuming this happened relatively quickly and our debt didn't really change, we would still owe 90, and the remainder, the 20, would be what we owned, our ownership. So if we sold the item for 110, we would pay back the 90, assuming it happened quickly, there's no interest that had accumulated, and we would have turned our 10 investment into 20. Now that sounds fantastic. The item went from 100 to 110, which means it went up 10%, but our investment went up from 10 to 20, which means it went up to 100%. Now that's what leverage is. We put in 10, the item moved in price by only 10%, but our 10 doubled because we had leverage to have an increased impact. Why? Because we borrowed a relatively high proportion, i.e. 90% in this case, to buy something. Now that sounds great and fantastic. Obviously that works, and if that was to be the situation, then we'd be very happy. Leverage also works the other way. Let's just say that this item that we bought for 100 using $10 of our own money and 90 of borrowed money went to 90. And the debt was still 90 and no interest had accumulated, so we sold it for 90. Well, we would basically use those 90 to pay back the debt, and our $10 would have gone to zero. So even though the item only went from 100 down to 90, which means it lost 10% of its value, we lost all our money, or 100% of our money, as the item dropped in value from 100 to 90. And that's what leverage is, and it manifests itself in many ways.